Hello and welcome to Fact Schmacks. It's the podcast good enough to get you a season
2.
My name is Matt, and I've got a story to tell you.
My name is Kev. I have a story to interrupt.
Hey, Kevin.
Hey, Matthew.
What is a skeleton's favorite food?
Oh, God. Bone meal?
Spare ribs!
Ah, God.
But I
thought we were talking about season 2 being better than season 1. We just lost all of our listeners.
We sure did. It is not only season 2 for us, but it is spooky season for everybody.
Everybody.
Which is my favorite time of year. I'm just absolutely on cloud 9 currently, looking at all the skeletons and vampires and Frankenstein's monsters running around all the time that only I can see.
Now, do you like Halloween because nobody asks you if you're like wearing makeup or just, if you're pale? We can cut this out, right?
You hurt me. You hurt me bad.
I have a great idea for your Halloween party too, by the way. My costume is going to blow all the other costumes out of the water.
Okay. I thought there was going to be an idea like something I could do. So it took me a second to catch up with the end of that sentence entirely because of a misconception I had at the beginning of it.
Fair enough. That's kind of how these shows roll.
Well, and sometimes misconceptions happen.
Yeah. I'm sorry I called you pale again.
That's okay. I forgive you.
I'm not actually sorry.
I will not forget this, but I will forgive this.
All right.
Do you have let's cut right to the shit here, okay?
Cut right to the
quick. Yeah. Do you have some fact schmacks for me?
I've got some fact schmacks for you. And we've got the return of an old dear friend of ours. Ooh. Any idea who this could be?
Is it who's an old dear friend of ours? It's been so long I've forgotten everything. Is it Julius Caesar?
Fuck no, it's Florida Man.
Florida Man!
Yeah, Florida Man. We got some Florida Man headlines here.
Love it.
Fact or schmacked? All right. Fact or schmacked, Matt?
Yes.
Missing Florida Man tried to ride jet ski to Bahamas despite ongoing hurricane.
Oh, that's something I can imagine somebody trying to do.
Really? That's like, you ever watched Dexter?
No.
Well, here's a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched Dexter, stop listening if you haven't already. At the end of the series, he rides out into a hurricane to fake his death.
Oh.
So, Dexter was also a Florida man.
He was.
Fun fact. Yeah.
Fun fact.
Fact or schmacked?
Yes.
Florida man drove a stolen truck to Space Force Base on presidential mission to warn of aliens.
Presidential mission, huh?
Presidential mission.
Okay. So he talked to the president and was given a mission.
Yeah.
According to him.
According to him.
Yeah.
He had a mission to deliver this message to Space Force.
Space Force.
Which is the best force. Space Force.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
What about the Force?
Maybe it's a real headline, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Fact or schmacked, Matt?
Yep.
Florida man denied flight for having baby alligator in carry-on bag.
That's the most believable one so far.
Okay.
Easily the most believable one so far.
So what is the fact and what is the schmack? Oh, also, I just wanted to mention, originally it was always 2 facts and a schmacked.
Yep.
For season 2, we've mixed it up. It could be either 2 facts and a schmacked or 2 schmacks and a fact. We're getting different here in season 2.
Wait, am I going to know whether I'm trying to root out 2 answers or what?
Well, it doesn't matter. You have to pick either which one's the most believable or which one's fake. Call it a fact or schmacked. We'll go from there. Does that work? I probably should have told you about this earlier.
Probably.
When I called you.
Okay, so wait, I have to have multiple answers now?
No. You just have to decide, are there 2 schmacks and a fact or 2 facts and a schmacked? and call out the right one.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Right? So it's
okay.
like, it gives us a little more wiggle room.
Well,
TikTok, my friend.
Because you've suddenly erased the specter. Here's where I'm at. I'm going to go through my reasoning here.
Okay, I like this.
You flat out told me that one of them is the plot of Dexter, so I'm going to say that you made that one up. Or someone could have copied it. And the other one seemed pretty implausible too, but the gator thing seemed real. So and now also you've foisted this there could be two lies thing in there. So I'm going to go with there are two smacks and a fact and say it's the gator thing is the only thing that was true there.
That is the only schmacked out of those headlines. Yeah. Dude, so check this out. A man who may have been attempting to ride a jet ski from Pompano Beach to the Bahamas is missing, the Broward Sheriff's Office said. Authorities are trying to find the 52-year-old man, Charles Walker.
Okay. Life imitates art.
Now, here we go. An Osceola man was arrested for allegedly driving a stolen truck to the Patrick Air Force Base in Brevard County on a mission from the president, according to the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. An arrest affidavit said Corey Johnson, 29, allegedly stole a 2013 F-150 from Rivera Beach, Florida,
Guy
3 days
like
prior. And on Tuesday, drove to the base on South Patrick Drive. Johnson told deputies the president of the United States told him in his head that he needed to take the vehicle and drive to the base to tell the government that there were U.S. aliens fighting Chinese dragons, according to the affidavit. So.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah, no,
I have
you
questions.
Heard that right. We all have questions.
What U.S. alien? I'm struggling with that. That seems like
U.S. aliens
like
fighting Chinese dragons.
Just the term U.S. alien just seems like a mutually exclusive, right?
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So, I mean, there you go. Florida's a crazy place. I kind of want to just go hang out there. I would love to meet Florida man.
Now, I have heard that the reason there are so many batshit crazy headlines out of Florida is because they have very different reporting laws in terms of
right.
Yeah, so it's kind of a place where you can go to mine for crazy things, and if you really knew a lot about what happened in a lot of places, you'd find that there's some crazy shit that happens everywhere.
There's a great website I discovered in my limited research for this topic.
Oh.
I found FloridaManHeadlines.com. Go check it out. It's fun. That one about the hurricane was only from like a week ago.
Well, I have to imagine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they have hurricanes like every other day.
Well, that's true. It could have been a former hurricane.
So, yeah, there's some fact schmacks for you. We're going to mix it up a little for season 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
spread it out a bit.
Sometimes it's a lot more fun when you're wrong playing this game, and I like that.
Yeah, I like it when you're wrong, too, because that means I'm right. I've won. I like victory.
Doesn't mean you're right. I'm the one who
No.
It means you've won, but you're not right. And I think those are two different things.
I don't agree. I think I was the right one.
Well,
so you were wrong.
I want to do something a little different here. I'm not going to just jump into this because it would be a little jarring. I'm going to do something a little different here to set the mood for what we're going to talk about.
Should I turn the lights down?
Well, if you want. If you're listening, I think you should turn the lights down because things are about to get a little spooky in here.
Are you going to use your spooky voice?
Double, toil and trouble. Fire burn and cauldron bubble. Fillet of a fenny snake. In the cauldron, boil and bake. Eye of newt and toe of frog. Wool of bat and tongue of dog. Adder's fork and blind worm's sting. lizard's leg, and howlet's wing, for a charm of powerful trouble, like a hell broth, boil and bubble. Double, double, toil and trouble, fire burn and cauldron bubble, cool it with a baboon's blood, then the charm is firm and good. Which is to say, where my witch is at.
Wow. Your spooky voice really creeped me out.
There we go.
It was very, you know what it reminded me of was Dave Mustaine from like Sweating Bullets. Hello, me. It's me again.
I'm probably trying to channel Tom Waits, if anything.
Okay. I can see that.
Yeah, but that is obviously from Macbeth, which is a play that was written in, I can't remember, late 1500s, early 1600s, like between 1590 and 1606 or something. But it's supposed to have taken place in the late 1590s. And the way that play portrays the witches in that scene is very kind of true to how people thought about witches in the day. They were possessed by demons, or they were under the control of Satan. They were, dealing in magics and potions and all sorts of forbidden things. But that wasn't always the case. For hundreds of years, witches and healthcare might as well have been the same word for a lot of people. People would go to the local witch for all their maladies, or, to try and get favors or whatever. But as the church takes over more and more, and as the church structure becomes more and more rigid in a lot of places, attitudes, towards witches changed pretty drastically, right?
Okay.
Like, if you were someone who, what comes to mind for you when I say witches?
Like definitely like the imagery of, the Halloween costume, the hat, the old haggard woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That whole thing. What about the history?
Kind of like the very cliche witch thing.
Yeah. What about the history of witches? Do you have any thought about witches through history?
You definitely jump onto the Salem Witch Trials.
Which could be where we're heading, I don't want to spoil anything.
Which could be where we're heading?
Which could be.
Oh.
Uh-huh. But around the time of the Protestant Revolution was starting up in, actually, I think it started up in England around the 1300s, even though the kind of lightning bolt moment was in the late 1500s history. Things take place over a long period of time. Change didn't happen fast, especially in that day. But as that starting to happen, people's attitudes towards witches changed quite a bit. Unlike, the Protestants of today, who, can range from being the deeply religious people to people like me who were just kind of baptized Protestant because it seemed like the least offensive thing and they weren't sure. They were just trying to make my grandparents happy anyways.
Hold up. One sec. Protestant, does that have anything to do with that Martin Luther thing in Holland?
Yeah. So that's Martin.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
Martin
a good story for a future day.
Yeah. There's a lot of stories that we could tell that center kind of, that either involve, that kind of tie into that. It was a pretty big moment in history, and it's a good example of like when he nails the list of things to the door. That's kind of what everyone looks at is like, yeah, that's when it happened. But really, it was like 200 years of, unrest and people yammering at each other that led up to that. So, yeah, in places like northern Italy, Germany, and England and Spain, people started to go on literal witch hunts. Real ass witch hunts. Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm just wondering if he's going to stop because he's a real jerk. I don't know if you can hear that. It's probably going to get picked up. I
heard it like briefly.
Yeah. He's a real jerk.
Yeah, it happens. Animals are very inconsiderate.
Yeah. But yeah, Protestants back in the day were very, very serious about, religion. And they started to hunt witches is where I was going with that. I got kind of sidetracked by my dog. Damn dog. Anyways, well, what do you need when you're doing a witch hunt?
Steaks for fortitude.
Yeah.
You could be out all night, man. You should have a good meal.
That's a perfect joke. Little subversion for you there. I love it. Perfect. No, you need a witch hunter. Obviously, you can't have a hunt without a hunter. Witch hunting became a real profession. I'm going to give you just 2 examples of real witch hunters.
Geralt of Rivia?
No.
Okay. That's the Witcher.
That's the Witcher. The Bellman was an unknown Scottish witch hunter with a badass
dude who hooks
name.
up my internet?
An account of him visiting a town goes something like this. He shows up in the main square. He demands the town brings him anyone that they thought was a witch. And then he would provide various tests, which could involve like pricking them with needles and seeing how they react and then making a judgment. Or in a lot of cases, what they would do is they would tie them up and then throw them in the river. And if they floated, they were a witch. And if they sank, they were not a witch. And they were dead, but they weren't a witch.
Oh, man. I got to tie into like that old like Vietnam thing where they're like, they shoot them if they run. And if they don't run, they shoot them. And he's like, well, how do you know they're VC? Or like, what made you think they were VC? Or it was like, oh, well, they're just well trained. They didn't run. Still VC. Like that's like the very like, yeah, you're whatever happens.
You're damned if you do.
You're damned if you do. Damned if you don't. Someone's persecuting you. It's just they're just out there for it. I screwed up that quote terribly. I can't remember if it was from a movie or a book I read.
Yeah. For his service, this bellman, he was paid 30 shillings per witch he found. So it wouldn't surprise you to find out that he found a lot of witches, in his opinion. Yeah.
You're just offing innocent people for $30.
Pretty much.
God, that's
as you said a lot, life was cheap back in the day, right?
For sure it was.
Oh man, $30 per person. Supposedly he died when he himself allegedly he died himself when he was accused of being a witch and he failed one of his tests. But a heavy citation needed is there, considering nobody even knows what his name was.
Just the bellman.
Just the bellman. Now, Matthew Hopkins, that's a different story altogether. Or actually,
alias?
Really, actually, a very similar story. He was a self-appointed witchfinder general, who was
like a witchfinder army,
I guess. Okay. Or I think he was maybe like the attorney general. He was like the...
Ooh, okay, yeah.
Like the
surgeon general, but the witch general.
The witchfinder general. He was, according to Wikipedia, responsible for more witchcraft-related executions than had happened in the previous 100 years. And this is in a 2-year period. Pretty zealous, to say the least. He would supposedly prick skin deformities, which he said were nipples to suckle imps. No joke. He would also, and if supposedly if they didn't feel anything, then they were witches. But he also supposedly had a retractable needle that he had built. So,
this guy's basically like a serial killer.
Yeah, but like a state-sanctioned serial killer
for profit.
Yeah, he's getting paid for it.
So he's Dahmer for dollars.
He's not eating them, though.
Okay, well, whatever.
Or maybe he is. I don't know. He would also do the tying people up and throwing them in a river thing. It's unclear if anyone floated.
Navy SEALs do that. Well, it's a pool.
Okay. To test how long they can hold their breath, or
yeah, like have you ever seen the Navy SEAL training? They'll tie them up and throw them in the water, and they got to like swim bound.
No.
So they just they'll basically go to the bottom of the pool, then kick up, get air, and keep doing that. That's horrifying to me.
Horrifying.
Every time I see that, I've seen a couple documentaries, and I'm just like, nope, that's where I quit right there. Yeah. I mean, they'd have weeded me out way earlier, but that's where I would quit.
This guy supposedly is responsible for the execution, just him, of anywhere between 100 and 300 people. Wow. And that's between 1644 and 1646. What a bastard.
Well, some bitch.
There is, again, with him, some reports that he, fell victim to the same fate as the other guy, where he was accused of being a witch and he couldn't defend himself. But there's another account of him dying from tuberculosis, and I'm just going to go on balanced probability. It's probably the tuberculosis one.
Okay.
In my opinion. Now, obviously, just from those two examples, you can see that witch hunters have a financial motive to find witches, right? But the general population also has some pretty kind of perverse incentives to find witches, too. If you get right down to it. Like, even if you just take religion out of the equation, which it was a huge part of the equation for these people at the time, but even if you just take that out of it, witch hunts become this great way of settling disputes, especially if the person you've got a grudge against has a lot less called social capital than you do. And a funny thing about the time is that just about any woman had far less social capital than just about any man. So by far, the people who were targeted by this were disproportionately women. Now, I'm not saying...
Isn't a male witch a sorcerer?
Or a warlock or a wizard?
A warlock, yeah.
I did a little bit of, not much looking into this. I think in modern times, the people who are into this sort of thing don't like the term warlock or wizard. I think if you're into Wiccan stuff, you're just a witch either way, is from what I understand, but I could be wrong. So that's why I've been going
As we often are.
That's why I've been going with witch. Just because of, yeah. No, I'm not saying that men weren't executed, because men were executed for being witches at the time, but they were, usually men who were either poor or different or suspected of being homosexual or, pick any. Yeah. Apparently there was some risk involved in actually accusing someone outright of this. So you had to be pretty sure that push comes to shove, you're going to win, when it comes right down to it. For however that worked back in the day. But yeah, so Europe spent about 300 years doing some seriously bonkers shit. Eventually, due to a variety of cultural forces, they pumped the brakes on it. You got your Renaissance happening, which actually had been happening since 1200 in southern Italy. Incidentally, that's one of the places where they weren't burning witches. But throughout the rest of Europe, they did that for a good 300 years. There was a good old witch panic happening. But eventually, like I said, it just kind of died off. You got your Renaissance, you got some church reformations that are happening around that time too. The population is just kind of becoming a little bit more educated. Eventually, people just kind of stop believing in witches. But in that 300 years, there had been anywhere between 30,000 and 65,000 people executed. Hard to tell, but it was a lot. Most of the witch hunting tropes that come from this place in this period. Burning witches, drowning witches, real shit show. The burning witches thing is particularly European. They didn't do that at all in Salem, which we are, going to get to. However, apparently, allegedly, from what I understand, and this is only what I'm told, most of the time these people were killed first by either like strangling or hanging or something. The actual burning was seen as like a purifying ritual for the body to make sure that the evil spirit didn't come back. But I think most of the time those people were dead before they were burned. Just doesn't make it that much better.
No, I mean, it's still pretty shitty.
Yeah.
Do you ever, when you were a kid, I remember when I was a kid and I would start learning about, Nosferatu and vampires and Dracula and all this
spooky things.
And when you're a kid, there's kind of this moment where you're like, hey, if I go to Transylvania, I could get devoured by a vampire.
Yeah.
If there's a full moon, there might be a werewolf out there. Because there's a brief period where you're aware of it and you're not quite convinced it's not true. Your parents tell you it's not true, but you're like, I don't know. All these people talking about vampires and witches and werewolves. Sasquatch.
My son's in it now. Like he's very afraid of ghosts, and so I try. He won't go in our basement because he's convinced there's a ghost down here. We've got like a finished basement. It's ludicrous.
I'm just gonna let this go.
Yeah. So it's hard to dissuade kids of
So and I remember being his age where you're kind of just like, whoa, like it could be real. Maybe they just tell me it's not real, so I'm not scared. But maybe it is real.
I once, this is a couple of years ago, but I took my son downstairs because he was afraid of the basement. I was like, you got to be able to go play in the basement without me being there. Like, it's this whole room. You want to run around, like it's a big space. Yeah. It's a perfect play place for kids. So go down there with his friends. He's got like a PlayStation down there. He won't even go down and use that. It's bananas. But when he was a couple years younger, I finally got it out of him that he thought that there was a ghost down here. And so I dragged him down here with him, and I thought this would be a good idea. I kind of like made a big show of being like, if there's any ghost, out here, come out here now so I can deal with you. Made a big show of like calling the ghost and trying to get the ghost out. And then I turned to him and I said, you see, there's either one of two things is true. Either there's no ghost down here, or no ghost would dare, bother you when it knows that I'm around. But what actually,
what an adorable dad moment.
But what he took from that was like, what he took from that was like, no, this is basically like a beehive, and you've gone and stirred up the bees. That's the way he looked at it. So it didn't help at all.
Well,
but I tried.
He'll probably be growing out of that soon enough.
Yeah. So, I'm still trying to get him to watch a scary movie with me. I want him to watch Poltergeist with me. It's like basically a Steven Spielberg movie. There's not too much like gross out stuff in it.
Yeah.
It's a fun movie.
I'm kind of excited to revisit some horror movies. I was never like a big horror movie guy. My parents never let me watch them. There's a couple franchises I do really like. I like the Halloween, like Michael.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know all of them.
You know what else is a horror movie that I kind of like? The Purge.
I've never seen The Purge.
I like the Purge series because I'm just kind of like, I could see that happening.
There is
like January 6th.
We're recording this on October 6th. There is, I believe, tomorrow a new Hellraiser show coming out that supposedly is very good. I don't know. I'm excited. Hellraiser is one of my favorite.
That's
properties.
Pinhead, right?
Yeah. Have you seen the first one?
No, like
it's
I
really
that's the
good.
Thing. Every time around this year, I kind of pick some old movie that I never watched. That's where I got into the Halloween movies and stuff. So maybe I'll give Hellraiser a
Hellraiser, like the first two movies they're not like slasher movies. He's not a slasher villain. He's not even really the star of it. Give it a go. There's like a deep mythology to it, Okay. It's very different.
I'll check that out and maybe I'll report back in one of our future scary episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Scary.
Now, do you recall the most famous witch hunt of all? Obviously, I'm talking about the Salem witch hunt.
Yeah,
What do
we
you
established
know?
this,
When I
dude.
say the Salem, Massachusetts witch hunt, what do you know about that?
It's super popular in pop culture.
Yeah.
It's like the go-to witch thing.
Yeah.
Basically, I think I probably read something about it once a long time ago. The only impression I have is a bunch of women were burned at the stake. It was like a mass hysteria almost.
Yes. And you're partially right. No one was burned in this particular incident. Yeah. Everyone who goes by hanging. Oh, with one exception. We'll get to the one exception.
Okay.
Yeah, in 1692, Salem, Massachusetts was kind of a shitty place to be. It's located on the eastern coast of the colonies. It's bordered by ocean on one side and kind of untamed wilderness on every other side. The residents had just wrapped up a war which had seen the male population literally decimated, so 1 out of every 10 people gone. Or 1 out of every 10 men gone.
What was this, 1692?
1692, yeah. Add to that, they, because there's just been a war, they've got an influx of refugees, and that's increasing the tension. And there's a radical new minister in town, Reverend Samuel Paris, who, is thought of as quite a hard ass. Yeah,
I have a question.
Please do.
What war was that?
It was a war against, I believe it was a war against France.
That Americans fought in?
Yeah, no, it was colonies at the time. So it was,
I guess, yeah. I guess it would be colonies.
But I don't know if it was, I didn't look too much into what actual war. I kind of glanced at the details, and it looks like there was some fighting in Quebec, but it wasn't the War of 1812, obviously. This might have been...
That's where we beat up America.
Yeah, this might have been the war where, hang on. One of the guys in Hamilton used to serve under General Montgomery. He caught a bolt in the neck in Quebec. This might have been the war where that happened.
1690.
It would have been, yeah, it would have been the early 1600s. Anyways, hey, yeah, I love that you're looking stuff up, eh? Rather than asking questions, you're being helpful. This is great.
Yeah, I
can hear you clocking away there.
I want to call out your shortcomings.
Well, at least you could contribute to the solution.
Yeah, because the American Revolutionary War was the 30 Years' War. 30 Years' War was a religious war fought over a 30-year time period from 1618 to 1648, involving most of the European powers. No,
it would have been a little
Civil
later
Wars, French Indian War, No, dude, I don't know.
I don't think it was I think it was more of a regional thing, or it might have been about against the Native Americans, or they might have been.
I don't like that.
Yeah, or they were involved. Hey man, like early colonial shit. What do you want from me?
Okay, fair enough.
They got this radical new minister in town, Samuel Paris, and he's thought of as quite a hard ass and also a bit greedy. People didn't necessarily like him. He's kind of a polarizing figure. The people who like him. The people who don't like him, boy, they don't like him much. He was supposedly, I heard in one account, he was supposedly known to say that people should spend 8 hours. Yes, I mean 8 hours. 8 hours a day. Yes, I mean a day in church.
What?
Yeah, church was pretty important, he thought, to the old colonial life there. And this, puritanical times and in the colonies, right? These people are pretty much pilgrims. I'm going to get...
8 hours a day, man.
8 hours a day! I don't know if that was supposed to be one day or every day, but, you're supposed to work for 8 hours, so I don't know.
Yeah, how are you supposed to, back then you had to feed yourself, you had to get the wood you had to cut the wood for your house, your fire.
Yeah.
Till the land.
The way these people practice religion, we would almost certainly call that extremism now.
Right. Here we go. 13 years after the devastating King Philip's War with the Wampanoag and indigenous tribes in the southern and western New England. So, in October 1960, Sir William Phipps led an unsuccessful attack on French-held Quebec.
1960?
Yeah, probably did. 1690. William Phelps led an unsuccessful attack on French-held Quebec. So, okay.
There we go.
So it was against the Native Americans, which is, that's the shitty part of our history.
Yep. Yeah, totally
here
shitty.
in North America.
Yep.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
Okay.
Shitty part of our history that went on, I don't know, till
1990.
now?
Yeah.
Current?
Yeah.
To current day?
Pretty much.
So, yeah. That's kind of the climate of the time in Salem. People are a little tense there. January of 1692, this Reverend Paris's daughter and his niece, they start acting super erratic, out of control, out of the blue, throwing tantrums, throwing things, having convulsions, having moments. Exorcist shit. 2 other girls were apparently affected. Now, after some prodding and some asking, the girls said that they had been bewitched by 3 women. One of whom, the first person that they point the finger at, the Paris's Caribbean slave, Tituba. The next person was a homeless woman named Sarah Good. And then the third person was a poor old lady who was not quite homeless, but, close enough, named Sarah Osborne. Not only did they have it out for Sarah's, but they also had it out for, obviously people who are not in so much of a position to really fight back. The ladies, Sarah and Tituba, were brought in for questioning. They were questioned for days. The Sarahs insisted that they'd done nothing. But Tituba, probably the smartest of the bunch, eventually decided to just give the interrogators what they wanted. She told them a tale. She spun a yarn. She spun a yarn of meeting the devil at night and being asked to put her name in a book in exchange for power. And she signed her name in that book, and she saw other women's names signed in that book too. So now all 3 of them are thrown in jail till they figure out what they're going to do about this nonsense.
Tomfoolery.
Well, as you can imagine, news of 3 witches being in jail, with potentially more out there, didn't exactly calm down what was already, I think I already said, a powder keg of what I'd call paranoia and resentment. Accusations of witchcraft start coming fast and furious. Governor sets up a special witch court to deal with it. Now, we have certain ideas about, what a court is like, and I assure you this is not like that at all. This was much more like the sort of court where, like, when you get brought in, it's presumed that you're probably guilty.
Like a kangaroo court.
Like a kangaroo court or a show court or a show trial. The first defendant brought forward was a lady named Bridget Bishop, and her crime was that she was sort of a promiscuous gossip. I guess dual crimes. Sounded like my
guilty
kind
as
of
charged.
lady, right?
Yeah. All right.
Oh, boy. She denied the charge, but she was hung anyways. She was hung or hanged on June 10th of 1692.
Also guilty as charged.
What?
Hung. That was a little late.
Fuck, that was a little late. God damn it.
Sorry.
Is that
you just kept talking.
Is that generally how far behind me you are?
No. See this lovely marijuana vape pen? That's how far behind you I am.
Sure. Let's take a little break. Yeah. So she's the first woman who was hanged on June 10th of 1692. Incidentally, June 10th is my birthday. So reading through that was like, now I'm going to think about that every year going
every time
forward.
You're blowing out your candles. Mm-hmm. Oh, here we go. That's a nice little pipe you got there.
Yeah, nice little, just do a little pipe there.
Hey, did you grow this year?
No, I didn't.
Oh, I got some nice plants. I'll give you some. I mean, no. I won't. That would be illegal.
I was telling you that when I was harvesting, it just really irritated my skin. So I just, my pale skin just can't handle it.
You were jumping all over that for me. I don't have to say a word.
I got there before you.
Sure did.
So, yeah, she was the first person to be hanged. In July, 5 more people went in the same way, largely based on what you would call spectral evidence, which is like dreams, visions, hunches. I don't know. Doesn't smell right. Looked at me wrong. That sort of thing.
Weird feelings. Yeah.
Yeah. There was 5 more people hanged in August and 8 in September. September was a busy month.
No kidding.
Oddly enough, it was the people who pled innocence who were murdered. Most, if not all, the people who confessed got off with jail time. Some people died in jail, so it's hard to say, got off. But the people who denied it were considered both, because like I'd said, once you're brought in, it's presumed that you're already guilty. So the people who protested their innocence, not only are you a witch, but you're a liar. Yes,
good filthy liar.
Yeah, which in puritanical Massachusetts was, almost as bad, really. So, yeah, most of the people who were executed were hanged, with one notable exception. Gilles Corey. Giles, Gilles, I don't know, how we would have pronounced it. I'll say Giles.
I would say Giles.
Giles. He'd refused to say anything at court. He thought he'd found maybe a bit of a loophole. There was also
the right to remain silent.
Well, you didn't at the time.
No.
Miranda
hadn't come around yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Miranda wasn't even born yet.
I don't think Miranda comes around to like the 50s. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
He thought he maybe found a loophole. He just didn't say anything when he was brought to court. Pled neither guilty nor innocent. Now, I think there was some part of this he was concerned about his inheritance. His wife had also been charged. Here's a funny thing. He's a bit of a leopards ate my face sort of type. He believed the charges that were levied against his wife, but when they came for him, he was like, oh, maybe this is bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding, eh? It's like, finally got rid of that old bag. Can't get a divorce back here in puritanical Salem.
That's true. That is true. Although he did apparently, this guy apparently beat a servant to death, but an indentured servant. But since they were considered property, he got off from that. So he's not a great dude. Like, we're not about to mourn
this guy at all.
Yeah, we're not about to mourn a great man.
Okay.
But he thought he'd found a loophole. He just didn't say anything. Well, back in the day, they had a way of dealing with that. What they would do, there's a French name for it, which I didn't write down and wouldn't have been able to say anyways. I'll just give you the gist of it. Put a piece of what's essentially plywood over you and just start putting stones on it, increasingly heavy stones, and just start crushing you. And eventually you'll say something.
Jesus. They were so industrious with their torture back then. How many times have you told me shit and I'm just like, what? Who'd have thought of that?
Right?
Like, there's some dude who was like the executioner general back then, and he was like, he would just sit around and be like, oh, I don't know, I got these rocks, I got this plywood.
There's someone who came up with this for the first time.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly. He's like, well, all right, I got an idea. Hold up, we'll get you to talk. You don't want to talk? We'll make you talk. All right, now you talk.
This is a bit of a sidetrack here. We're going to get back to this guy who's getting crushed by rocks here. I was watching a guy who was on video from a guy who used to be like the head of NCIS. He was a military interrogator, but for the Navy,
show?
not CIA, like Navy intelligence or FBI.
Right.
He did a lot of interrogations, and he was talking about how he used to teach that a guilty person would never confess to a crime, and that's something that people believed up until pretty recently. And it's something that seems so common sense to, I guess, what I would consider normal people, that of course an innocent person would confess to a crime if you make things bad enough to them. Did I say a guilty person? What I said is they were taught that an innocent person would never confess to a crime they didn't commit.
Yeah, but if somebody was torturing you and it was like, hey, confess.
Of course you would.
Or if like you're under so much duress, I can see it.
And so when he said, now we know, because a third of all the people who've been exonerated from physical evidence had signed confessions. Now we know that an innocent person definitely would confess, but like that seems like common sense to me. It's good that law enforcement's on board now, but that seems like common sense.
Well,
yes, absolutely.
I think too, like there's people who there's people you meet in your lifetime, and they're very strong people mentally. They can endure a lot. They can take a lot. They can, you can't shake their will.
Yeah.
But then there's also people who are very easily led, very, maybe don't have the mental fortitude to withstand even suggestions.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they're saying, that I was there. I must have been there. I must have blacked out. I don't know. I must have done this.
After a few days of no sleep and...
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely people who have the lack the mental maybe just whatever,
Oh, man, there's a... I don't know how famous it is, but I saw a thing about it. This case in Iceland, Reykjavik, where the police there just like kept these people in solitary till they admitted till they just like said anything, whatever's going to get me out of solitary.
I mean, I don't know, like maybe there's people out there listening who are like prison guards or something and are like, no, solitary is necessary, but like, on the surface looking at it, that's a terrible thing to do to somebody.
Yeah.
Even terrible people, man, like that just makes them worse.
Yeah,
I like the idea of prison as rehab, not
exactly
right.
People
like, go get help.
There was a quote from a judge. I was reading a ruling because I do weird things, and the judge said, "Is a Canadian judge like people go to prison as punishment, not for punishment. The job of the prison isn't to make things worse. The prison itself is the punishment.
Yeah,
being taken away from your life is punishment. Like."
Sure.
You don't need to make things horrible. Yeah. Well, the reason I did bring up the, because they thought an innocent person would never profess guilt. This guy is one of those guys who had a lot of willpower. Apparently, the only thing he ever said while he was being crushed to death was more weight. So
Jesus,
he did go out like a badass.
Maybe he was like, no, wait. And they're like, he said more weight, and they just dropped more weight on him, and that was it.
Maybe
he was asking for more time. Whoa, more weight.
No, not while this is going on. Not everybody in town is like full throated supporting this. There was a local clergyman named Cotton Mathers, and he wrote a letter as this was all going down to one of the judges, and he's just imploring them not to use any of this spectral evidence. Like, it doesn't make sense. How are we condemning people basically just based on hunches? That was completely ignored. Now, a little while later, his much more famous father, a guy named Increase Mathers. I'm not making that name up. His name was Increase Mathers.
Increase the influence.
Yes. He was taken apparently a little more seriously. He was the president of Harvard College, which did exist at the time. That's an old-ass school. He wrote a letter saying the same thing. Like, this is ridiculous. You're condemning people based on spooks and hunches. Now, the governor of the state took that letter more seriously. Governor. I'm sure it was definitely the letter that changed his mind, and it wasn't the fact that his wife was starting to get questioned about her being a witch. It was definitely the letter. Yeah, not the fact that his wife was being... Yeah, anyways. Whatever it was.
Yeah, definitely. No, 100%.
Whatever it was. At the end of October, he replaced his kind of kangaroo show trial court with a sort of real court. And a weird thing happened after that. The convictions for witchcraft dropped to basically 0. I think it was 3 out of 56 or something.
Oh, wow. How many people total?
So I think it was 9. What did I say? It was 5, 5, and 8. 1, 5, 5, and 8. Yeah, 19. Yeah. 19 people hung, and then the one guy got crushed.
Okay.
Yeah, and then a few people died in prison. So,
sure.
The weird thing is that that's not that many when you compare it to, like, the one guy who fucking killed between 100 and 300 people.
Sure.
So why is this the most famous one and not that fucking guy?
I think maybe it's just more famous here.
I don't know.
Maybe
I think you're probably right. We'll actually get it. Well, and there is a bit. There was Arthur Miller wrote a play, which again, he's an American playwright, so I don't know how much sway that has, but
that's Death of a Salesman guy, right?
Yes,
Miller,
he wrote a play called The Crucible, which largely drew on Salem. I was talking with my wife about that, about how much influence or how much knowledge, kind of there is about Salem. I think it as just like a spooky thing. I think it's got a reputation for being like a Halloween spooky thing that happened.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And definitely this time of year you talk about that kind of,
absolutely,
witchcraft and zombies.
Yeah.
Werewolves.
Now,
aliens.
It is said that the absolutely gruesome death of this Giles Corey guy, because, apparently when he finally went, apparently his tongue fell out of his head.
Oh, my God. What?
Yeah, he just got... it was bad. He got crushed. I think, in a cold light of day, you look back on something like that, I think people started to kind of feel like, oh, that maybe wasn't great. Maybe we thought they'd done a big
not our shining moment.
Over the next 300 years, in a series of kind of awkward steps, the government of Massachusetts would eventually apologize and exonerate all of the victims, although I think the last victim was exonerated this year because she'd been essentially forgotten.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, in a broader legal context, this incident did help lead to things like, representation in court and a presumption of innocence, that sort of thing. So, it did have a bit of an upside, I guess, at the end of the day in terms of American courts.
I guess.
It is weird that it happened right. It happened after the fervor had largely died down in Europe. It was this weird kind of flare up after the fact. Huh. Now, why did this happen? Why did Salem happen? So long after the fact, so long after people should have known that there's no witches.
Well, funny you mention it. The very few things that I know about this, if I recall correctly, had something to do with their diet. Am I right? I'm
so glad you brought that up. Ergot poisoning.
Okay.
Something.
Yeah, it's basically like LSD.
Yeah, and it's a type of fungus that can grow on rye. They did eat a rye-based diet, so people have brought that up as maybe the population was under the influence. Now, to steal a line from this YouTuber named Thoughty2, he puts out some fun videos. If the people of Salem were high on ergot, then Europe had been on a bender for 300 years.
And maybe they were.
But it's kind of a well-known cultural phenomenon at this point. I don't think you really need to get into the or to something like that to really explain it, right? To me, I look at it more likely that, this is a social environment where people are super stressed out. They're anxious about just about everything. They feel like they're vulnerable to attack. They've got nowhere to escape to. It's just a powder keg, the sort of powder keg that maybe only needs some bored kids taking a game too far to go off. Or maybe the kids are coached by a reverend who, wants to cement his foothold in the town. He did become quite powerful after all this happened, and it did start with his daughter. So there's a little, suggestion that maybe it was coached.
Killed?
No. Oh, no. The
daughter's she was a victim.
Yeah, a victim, right? There's also a possibility that this Tituba, the slave, the one who totally just rolled over,
really rolling,
yeah. She spent a year in jail and then got out. She was a smart one. The other two ladies got hung, hanged. I don't know. Either way,
I believe hung is the past tense.
She was from the Caribbean, allegedly, or maybe from South America. It's possible that she had told the children a bunch of stories about, kind of voodoo and witchcraft and stuff like that. The kids maybe took it too far, and that's why they pointed at her first, like it's her fault. And, you can imagine something like that happening. just in the environment that they were in, coupled with
maybe she admitted to it because maybe she thought she was a witch. Maybe that's the story she told, and then they're like, "Hey, did you tell these stories?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, no, I did. I did do that. That's totally why we're here today." And they're like, "Well, you're going to jail for a year. We're gonna kill a bunch of other people and get instead."
No, because she's the one who said that she met the devil. Like she did
That's
give
what I'm
them.
saying.
She gave them the story they wanted to hear.
But maybe that's where the story was. Maybe she thought she was a witch, and they're like, "Oh well, we're gonna put you in jail then, I guess. Thanks for telling us."
I don't know about this.
And the rest were like, "I don't know.
I don't know.
That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it."
Okay. I just think it's like just a powder keg of a situation, and it didn't take much to set it off. Really, at the end of the day, the things that strike me the most are how little it took to set it off. I mean, just accusations from some kids, and in hindsight, how I'm certainly not downplaying the fact that 19 people died, but like just in comparison to
that's what we do on this show. We're gonna make fun of it at some point.
But just in comparison to what had happened in the past 300 years in Europe, just such a small incident. But it's the one that takes up the most mind share, at least in North America, for
sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's kind of it's the devil or the witch story
There you go. So that's it. That's kind of the story of Salem. Some little bit of history before it. A little dramatic reading of some Shakespeare.
All right, now we've talked about some history. I want to briefly propose something for the future.
Oh, you propose a lot of things that haven't happened. I love how you do this on the podcast.
No. Check this out. Ergot, rye, poisoning, hallucinations. Let's get some rye bread, stick it in a cupboard, let it get a little moldy, see how weird it gets for science.
No.
Think it would work?
No.
God,
and also,
why not?
I could drive 15 minutes away from here and buy magic mushrooms, apparently, so.
Really?
Yeah. Why would we go through all that
Wow.
trouble? At a store.
Maybe it's different. What?
Yeah.
Wait, hold up.
Uh-huh.
At a store.
At a store.
A store you can buy magic mushrooms.
Mm-hmm.
What?
Or maybe I'm making it up.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but yeah, so if
Let's do an episode on mushrooms.
I don't think anyone would want to listen to that.
Oh, I think they would.
I don't think so.
I don't think it would turn out very well.
I think it would be incomprehensible.
Yeah.
I think it would be fun for us to listen back to.
Oh, it would be fantastic. Yeah. If I could listen back to some of our past mushroom trips, I'd be a happy dude.
Predator roofing.
Remember when we thought we were going to go on an adventure up north? We made it to the shore.
Yeah, our 20-minute
feet
walk
away.
for 20 feet.
20 minutes. We had such big plans in those 20 feet.
Oh,
every
terrific.
step was a new idea.
It was best. We would have been witches back in the day.
Oh, 100%.
Not because we're weird, but because we're homosexuals.
Just for each other. Whatever, man. It's true love. Well, that was a pretty fascinating story, Matt.
Well, thank you.
It's
it's nice that I can put together a long one again. Our last couple have been a little short.
Well, dude, season 1 was a roller coaster. We had no idea what we were doing.
Yep.
We still really don't, but we've got a better idea, I guess.
Yep.
I mean, we're pretty much at a 1 year mark of when we started.
Yeah, we are. This is a good time.
So it's kind of a good time to kick over. We know going forward that like summertime, we're not sitting in the house recording podcasts.
We tried a lot of things. A lot of them didn't work.
Yeah, that's fine though. I'm excited. I think season 2 is going to be good. We'll mix it up a little bit. We'll have some fun.
We will eventually have a new theme song. It's in the works. It sounds terrific.
Yeah, I'm excited. What we're going to keep around though.
Kev's closing fact.
Absolutely, Kev's closing fact. So I wanted to bring something up here. This is kind of inspired by a movie trailer I watched today, and I'm super excited for it.
Is it the Mario trailer?
What? Okay, well, I guess I have 2 trailers to watch today.
Okay.
So October 28th, All Quiet on the Western Front comes out on Netflix, a new version that's being screened in the Toronto International Film Festival.
Like, is it the original? Is it
No,
like a
so the original. So we're based on a book by a German veteran of World War I named Erich Maria Remarque. I don't know if that's the right pronunciation. Did you know in German it's not All's Quiet on the Western Front? It's in the West, nothing new.
Huh. Okay.
It's like a haiku or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
maybe not.
It's got a certain really German directness to it.
Yeah, they're very interesting speak. So it was a movie in the 30s. It won best picture and best director and outstanding production. And it was the first all-talking non-musical film to win the Best Picture Oscar.
Oh.
It was also nominated for Best Cinematography and Best Writing Achievement. There was also a 1979 movie made for CBS. Ernest Borgnine. Borderline.
Are you just reading off Wikipedia to me? Like, what's going on here?
No, listen, I have a fact. I just wanted to preface. I wanted to put a little more meat into Kev's closing fact.
Okay.
Because I feel like they've been a little flimsy lately because I've put very little effort into it. So now I'm trying. You're shitting all over me. This is exactly what I do to you.
Yes. Yes, it
is. I deserve every bit of this, and I'm pushing on nonetheless. Anyhow, so that Ernest Borgnine, who was Frankenstein? Not in the movie, but like, wasn't Ernest Borgnine famously like Frankenstein or something?
You sure you're not thinking of Peter Boyle? Sorry, you sure you're not thinking of Peter Boyle?
I don't know what I'm thinking of. Doesn't matter. Anyhow,
Ernest Borgnine, wasn't he in like McHale's Navy?
Yeah, but he was something else too. He was some kind of famous. I'm sure he was a famous monster of some sort. Why don't you look it up while I finish this fact here?
You betcha.
So anyhow, super fascinating World War I story.
One fact coming right up.
Anyhow, brought me to this World War I fact. The explosion of the mines at the Battle of Messines. So basically, they tunneled under the German lines, planted all these explosives, killed more people than any other man-made, non-nuclear explosion in history. After months of tunneling and to start the battle, the British detonated 455 tons of ammonal explosives underneath German lines on June 7th, 1917. Roughly 10,000 German soldiers died immediately, and the explosion was heard in London and Dublin.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that wild?
And just like the idea
10,000 souls. Ugh.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? So, if you haven't checked out the trailer, Matt, it looks like a great film.
Yeah.
I'm super excited.
That whole operation, to just dig under the entire German line and just fucking blow it up from underneath that's unreal. Yeah, it's the sort of thing you learn about. You're like, it ruins fiction.
I think that's truly one of the things I have a hard time with is reading fiction stories now, because I'm like, there's so many just great and crazy, mind-blowing stories out there. Yeah. And we're going to try and explore every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
Poorly.
I'm having a hard time finding Ernest Borgnine as any.
There's some kind of Ernest Borgnine, like maybe it's a Simpsons joke or something. I don't know. There's something about him that stands out.
He's got like a big kind of goofy grin. Like he just wouldn't. I'm having a hard time imagining him as a bad guy in anything.
I thought for sure. I'm gonna, you know what? We won't ever address it in a future episode, thank God. But I'm going to look this up for my own purposes and see what the hell I was thinking about. Because sometimes I like to know what's going on in this batshit crazy mind of mine.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, folks, welcome back to season 2. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Kev, and I'm saying goodbye.
Goodbye. I'm not a host anymore. You're a co-host. I'm the host. You're my guest.
No. We are hosts equally. You just do more work before.
You're my host. That's right.
Listen, you're my host, bitch. Wait, no, damn it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to Fact Smacks.
We hope you enjoyed our show. If you want to hear more, be sure to check us out on Patreon at patreon.com/factschmacks.
Or you can check us out on Facebook or on YouTube or on twitter.com @FactSchmackedPod.
We also have a website, factschmacks.xyz, because we know you haven't had enough yet.
Sure.